Welcome, friend, to Life and Liberty Radio. I'm David Householder, here to encourage your pursuit of happiness. You and I are partners, exploring our shared spiritual journeys. Together, we're dreaming and working for a free society. Tell others today about our adventure in faith and freedom. So breathe in, open your mind, lift up your spirit. Let's get started. I'd like to go in a spiritual direction today. This morning in my own study, prayer, and meditation time, I took out the devotional classic Duties of the Heart by Rabbi Bachya ibn Pakuda. He was a Spaniard who lived about 1,000 years ago. You'll remember the year 1040. I've talked about him before in what was at that time Muslim Spain. And he was in the Jewish minority there, and a very bright guy. And he wanted to get some basic teaching down on how the universe is put together. And he talks about the importance of understanding truth so that our spirituality is wrapped around that truth and not connected to something which is indeed not true. And so often that happens to us. And he starts with Deuteronomy, or as he says in Hebrew, Devarim, 6, verse 4. That's chapter 6, verse 4. And this is the central passage of the entire Bible, according to Jesus, and according to most of the rabbis, and according to Ibn Pakuda. Now, that's a big statement, but most Jewish people and Hebrew speakers would say that that's also true. And if you're a follower of Jesus, you would probably also agree. And I'd have to ask a Muslim. My guess is it's not too far off for Muslims either. And this passage in the ancient writings of the Bible, some of the oldest writings of the Bible, goes like this. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 3 little couplets. Hear, O Israel, Shema Yisrael. The Lord is your God. Yahweh is your God. Eloheinu. Adonai, or Yahweh Echad, is a singularity or a unity. So God is one. And Ibn Pakuda believes that you will never, ever understand spirituality, and your prayer life will be off if you don't understand this basic thing. And he walks us through 10 gates. You can think of 10 gates on your way into a city, or 10 gates around the walls. And he talks about the first gate being understanding the unity of God. The Lord is one, and that there is a creator, that this creator is indeed our maker, and that this creator is a unity, a singularity, and not a composite being. Now, why is that important? Why is theology important for our prayer life to be correct? Can't we just be spiritual? Do we have to understand theology? Well, actually, his theology is a way of avoiding theology, because most theology is actually inaccurate. It says all kinds of complex things about God which aren't true. The truth is, God is very, very simple. The Lord is one. Yahweh Echad, Echad, a singularity. And he walks through the philosophy of Aristotle and talks about how everything we look at is complex. And none of it looks like it's self-generating. And there are causes and effects throughout the universe that are somewhat complex, but all of science is based on the assumption that there are causes and effects. And we all see that, even though we don't understand things like change and progress or any of that philosophically or scientifically or even logically. Logically, things can't change, and so we're still kind of dealing with that philosophically. And music is actually probably the best way to describe how things change and move through melodies and all of that. But as we look at the universe is made up of compound things that are lots of things put together. And these things were caused by something else, caused by something else, caused by something else. And Ibn Pakuda says, Bachya Ibn Pakuda says, when it comes right down to it, there's no way that something that is compound created this, because compound things cannot even create themselves. Something brought the design into the world. And he uses the illustration of a water wheel in Gate 1. If you were to walk through the country and see a water wheel with a mill there, you'd say, someone made that. Someone made that water wheel. Of course, someone did. And you wouldn't just assume that that got there and made itself. Well, it didn't. And then he talks about the complexity of the human body and how it's so much more complex as a machine. It's even self-perpetuating and self-aware. Is that the chances of that not being designed are not really high. It's very counterintuitive, no matter what people tell us to the contrary. He says there must be a massive motivation to delogify ourselves to think of something like that. Then he says ink. If you take ink and pour it over paper, you can do it 1,000,000 times and you're never going to get anything that is legible. And that's just language, which is very simple compared to the complexities of physics and all those things around us. He says there is design. Seeing design and seeing complexity, there must be simplicity behind it, because if anything is compound, then it is created. And only something simple could be behind it all. It can't be something that was put together or fashioned. It can't be something designed. So God cannot be designed. It's been said that we create God in our own image, and we often do that. And God is therefore a false God when we do that. And the word that Bachya would use for that would be an idol. Something that we make. And we do that in all of our faith systems, in all of our religions, because we get away from the simplicity of God, because God must be one. God must be a unity. God cannot be a compound or put together thing. And God cannot be created. There must be something that is designing that is not designed. If you believe in design, which most people do, looking around in most cultures, in most throughout history, people believe in design. It's the most convincing argument for the existence of God. If you believe in design, then the designer cannot be part of that which is created. The creator is not part of the creation. Therefore, we cannot perceive the creator in creation, although we cannot get away from him because he is present everywhere. And also in the creation, we have his fingerprint on almost everything that is designed around us so incredibly, beautifully, and really sublime. So he talks about how we can't find God anywhere and we can't get away from him anywhere either. And he is the ultimate reality around everything we do. And we have to come to grips with his complete absence and total presence at the same time. And to call creation God is missing the point. We mistake omnipresence or being present everywhere for the idea that the rocks are God or the trees are God. They're not. They're holy, certainly, spiritual, absolutely, and infused with God, certainly. But we observe those things which are compound and material, and those cannot be the Creator. And he would say God is present everywhere, and also completely absent everywhere, because if you can measure it, it's not God. We'll put it that way. If you can measure it, it's not God. It's not part of the, if it's part of the creation, it can't be the Creator. So we're faced with this dilemma in our prayer life. And anytime we create a complex religion around this reality, we get off base. And so even Jesus definitely affirmed this by saying, when the rabbis asked him, what's the greatest of the commandments? He said, well, it's this, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And everyone said, you've answered well. And he would be right in line with this. So what does this mean for us? This means for us that there can only be one God. There can't be more than one God. Well, so I believe in several gods. Well, then your prayer life is going to be off. And why is that? Because Bachya ibn Pakuda says, and I agree, that when it comes right down to the situation, if there are several gods, they share power. And if they share power, then they are not omnipotent and they don't have authority over creation. And if you look at reality, we basically have one reality. We share that reality. And if we don't accept that, well, the truth is, you accept it all day long. You operate as if it's true. Well, because it is. We are all sharing perception of the same reality. Now you can say, well, we don't know that for sure. Well, yeah, every decision you make is assuming that that's true. Whether you're driving somewhere, going somewhere, buying something, eating something, talking to someone, you make the assumption that we're all in the same creation together. If there's one creation, then there's one Creator. And that Creator is not sharing authority with anyone. So, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. And the very stark truth of this is that there is one creator, and faith systems that get in the way of that and insist upon detail of compounding and complexity, then they're missing the whole point. I believe that every human being has an opportunity to enter into that paradox on a daily basis and to focus in on the prayer and love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and seek Him out everywhere, and yet struggle with the apparent absence of God from time to time. But the truth is, we can also feel His presence, and we can also sense His presence, and we're more likely to do that if we get all the cobwebs out of the way and all the false rabbit trails. So there you have it, Duties of the Heart, Rabbi Bachya ibn Pakuda, which was recommended to me by Rabbi Mordecai Finley here at Or HaTorah in West LA. And he's an amazing Bible teacher. You ought to check him out some Saturday morning. And I would also recommend this book heartily. I'll put a link to it on my webpage. You take care, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Well, that's all for today on Life and Liberty Radio. Thanks so much for sharing this part of your spiritual journey with me. Now, the views on this program are not necessarily those of my advertisers, sponsors, places I work, or do business with. They're purely my own, but I'm sharing them with you, so share your ideas with me. Write me on Twitter at Liberty House, LIBERTYHOUS, no E. Until next time, let's continue dreaming and working for a free and spiritually grounded society.